Hi, you're listening to the My Body, My Story podcast.
Enjoy the ride and don't take life so seriously. There's so many times of just stress and anxiety and tension that we create for ourselves that it's absolutely unnecessary.
This is the 45 over 45 chapter where we celebrate rule breakers and role models, the women who inspire us to live life our way and to show their sensuality, beauty, soul, and true essence. Here we talk about what it's like to be 45 plus, adjusting to the changes that come with time, and we'll listen to the stories of our participants. If you have an interesting story to share, we'd love for you to participate. You can email us on info@alexandrawalker.com, and that's Alexandra spelled with a KS, or visit our website alexandrawalker.com.
Hi Lisa, welcome to our studio and to our project. And while you're sitting in the makeup chair and Chitra is doing makeup for you, I'll be asking you a few questions. And let's start with telling us a bit.
I am 51, I'll be 52 on the 26th of November. I am originally from the United States, born and raised, but I'm a child of immigrant parents. Both my parents immigrated from Chile, and so I was brought up with a Chileno culture in the United States in a part of town that was very minority driven. And we were a minority among the minorities because at that time in the early 70s there weren't any Latin people really in Seattle. It was pretty far from South America, so it was cold, and it's not something they would normally gravitate towards. Let's see, more about myself. I've been in technology since the early 90s, and I'm fairly driven about work. I was married for 22 years, and my partner and I drifted apart, and we ended up getting a divorce. At the time, we had a 9-year-old son, and he currently lives with his father in Queensland, and I live here in Sydney. So, I guess. Let's see. I'm a sister. I'm a mom. And I'm a workaholic. So I guess that's how I would summarize myself.
That's interesting, but what are you most passionate about?
What am I most passionate about? In the last, I'd say 3 years, I've been struggling with that answer. Before it was really easy to answer. I used to be really passionate about growing the business that I'm a part of and helping customers solve problems. So I'm a consultant. Mm-hmm. I get to work with a variety of different businesses and industries, and now I'm responsible and have helped grow the business that I'm a part of. For the last 5 years, we've grown from, when I moved to Sydney from Adelaide, we had 12 employees. We're now over 30, I think we're at 35 right now. So I used to be really passionate about growing the business, but now I'm questioning whether I'm in the right place again. But I've been with the company for 8 years, so that's, I guess, why my passion is kind of waning at this time, because it's been a lot of the same for the last couple of years. But I get to work with global companies. I get to help them define what their products are, how they're going to engage with their customers, what the experience should be, mm-hmm. Advise them when they're doing things silly, and tell them I use really strange phrases, and I tell them things like, if you go right, you're going to find a dragon that's over there, and you really need to stop. So trying to make things stick for them is what I do, and recommend why and how they should go about things.
So you said you came to Sydney from...
I lived in Adelaide. Actually, I immigrated to Australia under a work visa in 2013. with my family, and I lived in Adelaide for 3 years, and then I moved to Sydney. Just recently I became an Australian citizen.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. I now hold 3 citizenships, and so I need to figure out
Yeah, I was going to say that.
where am I going to land? Yeah, so I'm a Chilena because I lived in Chile in between 2005 and 2006, and that's when I actually relaxed enough to conceive my son and have my pregnancy stick. So I guess, you know, I'm really fortunate that I have him because prior attempts didn't work out. And I think it was because too much stress in my life. And then I moved back to the US so he could be near his family and I could be near my parents. And then after things changed, we decided we needed to live abroad again because the politics of the US are exhausting.
So you just you never lived in Chile, or
No, I did for a year.
For except this year.
Yeah.
So how did you find it? Like,
I throughout my lifetime I traveled back. The first time I traveled to see my family in Santiago or in Chile in general, I was 7. My parents sent me down there for 65 days by myself, and I think that was one of those really life-altering activities because being a 7-year-old going without your parents and meeting people who you'd never met before, who are familial but you've never known, is quite an experience for a little kid. I would never have done it with my son, but I also understand why my parents did it because, you know, they worked really hard and we didn't have a lot growing up, but this was a huge gift to me so that I could know my culture and know my aunts and uncles and cousins and my grandmother, because she was the only one that was alive at that time of my grandparents. And so since that trip, I made 5 prior trips. So I knew of Chile, I knew of Santiago and many of the places where my family came from. I just hadn't lived there for long periods of time. I'd visit for a couple of months at a time.
Interesting. Everyone knows that with age we change, but what positive changes have you experienced so far?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think because of my olive complexion, I think one of the positive things with aging is that I'm not aging as fast as people that don't have as much pigmentation age. My current partner is 6 years younger than me, but my son always says that he looks much older than me because he's more wrinkly.
He knows how to make compliments.
Yeah, he knows how to make his mom feel good, for sure. But as far as aging, I you know, it gets to the cliche stuff, right? The wisdom of knowing now some of the things that used to really worry me don't worry me as much because they're not that big of a deal. I honestly wish, though, that I had not been born with an old body. So that's, I guess, why aging is kind of one of those odd questions for me. Because my first surgery, and like I had mentioned, my first really major surgery, I was 12 and I had reconstructive knee surgery on my left knee. When I was 15, I had my gallbladder removed. And so, you know, feeling like I had a physical structure that could support me being either sporty or athletic or healthy has always been a bit of a struggle.
But do you think the amount of surgeries you went through, it helped you to appreciate your body more, or it's on the contrary, it questions your, like, what is my body? And I'm leading to the question of what is the body image, and where do you think this idea of perfect body comes from?
Yeah, you know, the idea of the perfect body, and body image, that's a tough one. When I was a kid, you know, we used to idolize obviously the feminine figure, Barbie, instilled in us this, you must have this hourglass figure, and you must be blonde and blue-eyed and very fair-skinned. And so when I was growing up, that was what everybody thought was beauty. But because my father was very, he was a diesel mechanic, and he taught me how to help fix things. One of my very first jobs, I was in manual labor. I used to repair buses for the Transit Authority in Seattle.
Wow.
And so, I know how to weld, I know how to panel beat cars, I know how to paint silk screen and do all this really heavy stuff, and my body couldn't keep up. And I actually got damaged my hand in 1990, which led me to be in an office, which led me to be into computing, which was great. It was serendipitous. But my belief of body image and everything else, I never really thought of myself as a voluptuous woman or feminine, because I could do these things that were non-traditional, and for years I was always told I was in non-traditional trade, and I'm not afraid to dive in and try and build something or construct or deconstruct something when it comes to either my home or a vehicle. So I never have really felt feminine in that way, and knew that I wasn't Caucasian, blue-eyed, blonde-haired, and I didn't fit that mold, so I didn't have to try and be that perfect woman, right? And so up until recently, I rarely have worn makeup or even thought about how and what I do to be, I guess, that feminine image that people think or expect, or that I believe they expect. It hasn't really been a priority, right? I do dress up and try and make myself comfortable with what I'm doing and why I'm doing something, but I'm not necessarily focused on what everybody else thinks.
But what is for you your perfect body would be?
Oh, my perfect body for me would be something that doesn't make my joints hurt, right? I've gotten over the fact that I'm not going to get rid of certain bulges here and there, because that's just how we are, and they've been with me for so long, they're not going away anytime soon.
So basically it comes to a healthy body is the perfect body.
That would be absolutely, right? And I don't know if I'll ever get to the healthy body where I'm not having, because I've already been told I need to have my right hip replaced and my left knee replaced. With the surgery that I'm going to have on the 15th, I'm removing the last bit of meniscus in my right knee. I had meniscus surgery on that knee in July, and I've damaged it again just doing nothing but minor rehab, and we're not really sure how I did that. So I don't feel, like I said, I feel like I was born with an old body, right? So yes, that.
But even with this old body, you were able to get married and have kids and child.
Yeah, I'm very, very fortunate from that perspective, for sure.
Don't you think it's also our perception? Like, what I learned recently, that our bodies are so resilient. We don't know how much it can bear, and we think that. I just met this fear of getting old, and then suddenly I realized that you really have to try hard to damage yourself. Like, the body is so able to regenerate, or of course you cannot regenerate parts if they're removed, but still, and it's mainly a big part is in our mind, how we perceive as ourselves as old or young or healthy. Would you agree with that? Or?
I do agree with that. I think that mentally I feel like I'm 20-something, And so as long as I've got the mental capacity to be able to think through things, although I do have to say with premenopausal activity that's starting to happen, my sharpness and my ability to problem solve and not have a foggy brain is really a struggle. And I know that my diet and how I treat myself really affects that. Because when I've completely detoxed and I've gotten rid of garbage and I don't drink and I, try and treat myself, better but restricted, that mental quickness comes back. But if I don't pay attention, it becomes kind of that fog again.
Yeah, so you need always to keep this maintenance.
Yeah.
I compare it as with an old car, which can run for ages if you keep maintenance. So would it be the biggest challenge you're experiencing at this age, the transformation into your body transformations?
Yeah, I think the fluctuation in hormones, and I think the change in balance of how much I give a shit.
Yeah.
Right, are things that are the kind of the things I need to focus on or think about now, right?
So if we move to things we achieved already in life, what do you think your greatest accomplishment so far?
So far, yeah, my greatest accomplishment I would have to say is obviously having my son. When I got pregnant with him, I didn't think I was actually pregnant. It turned out to be what I thought was the world's longest hangover. Turned out to be it turned out to be my son. I was celebrating World Cup in Chile, and the semifinals landed on my anniversary, and so we started very early in the morning at 8:30 watching the matches in Germany, and I think we finished up the day at the pub at midnight. So it was a very long day.
Long day.
A long day. Many things were consumed, let's put it that way. So 4 days later, I was still feeling really horrible. And my partner at the time, he looked at me and he said, I don't think this is a hangover anymore. And he went and bought me a pregnancy test, which was hilarious because he's as I put it, an American mutt, right? He's an American. He barely spoke Spanish, and I was mostly his interpreter most of the time when we lived there together. Mm-hmm. But he came back with the test. I took it, and sure enough, I was pregnant, and I had symptoms that would make me think I wasn't. So I scheduled an appointment with an OB who specialized in women over 35, and found out that I was going to lose the pregnancy if I didn't literally stop and lay down. So I was on what I refer to as house arrest for 6 weeks. I couldn't, the doc said, you can go from the bed to the kitchen to get food. Don't sweep, don't clean, don't do anything, and then go to the couch. That's it. Wow. Don't walk on stairs, don't do anything. And throughout that 6 weeks, I almost lost him once. So it was a pretty big accomplishment for us to actually carry the baby to term. And he was born quite big and healthy by the time he came around. But that would be, I guess, the greatest personal accomplishment that I've had. Professionally, I would say it would probably be, many little steps. I've worked for some pretty big companies in the U.S. and have received accolades, given awards or been ranked really high, sent on trips, those sorts of things. Because when I dive in hard and I work hard. So yeah, I guess it just depends on whether we're talking professional accomplishments or personal. Yeah.
So if you could go back to your 30-year-old self and meet her, what advice would you give to yourself?
Oh yeah, I thought about that one long and hard, and the advice I would give to myself would be to actually trust in my own my own beliefs, my own thoughts, and not follow his dreams or his meandering wandering of what he thought the world should be. I gave up my career in mid-2000s because I was told that I loved my job more than I loved him. And he was kind of starting to really become, without being too critical, conspiracy theorist and paranoid person. And so I gave up a lot, and I shouldn't have. And 15 years later, when I finally went, I've had enough, I'm done with this. My brother, of all people, he said to me, "It's about damn time," because we thought he jumped off the cliff a while ago mentally, and, you know, nobody told me. And I asked him why he didn't tell me. He said, "Well, because you would have dug your feet in and you would have stayed longer." So I shouldn't have stayed. I should have let him go when he threatened, because I should have known right then and there people who threaten you aren't there for you. So that would have been the advice I would have given the 30-year-old self.
And what would you say to younger women who will eventually reach this age and undergo these changes?
Enjoy the ride and don't take life so seriously, right? Because there's so many times of just stress and anxiety and tension that we create for ourselves that is absolutely unnecessary, right? It's chaotic what we do to ourselves because of impressions of what other people think or what we think their expectations are and how we should meet it, and it's just unrealistic or unnatural.
And I think I was thinking long, how come we have to reach 45, 50 and more just to start thinking that I don't want to bother about small things? And I made a parallel with our health, that when we do it to ourselves, that we damage our health mentally and physically as well.
Yeah.
And once we realize that our health is damaged, all we wanted to be healthy, and for that we realized that we shouldn't worry that much.
Yeah.
So if we could, at our 30-year-old self, just stop doing that, it would be perfect. I think that our health would be much better as well.
I agree. Now, I will say I'm not good with managing stress, and I know that stress can literally kill what your body tries to grow, right? It is really toxic to you. Yeah. So that's the one thing at my age I still haven't figured out yet, is how to not stress about things and how to alleviate that. So if I could tell my 30-year-old self, figure that one out, I would.
Yeah, that's true. What does it mean to you feeling good and looking good? And what comes first?
Yeah, so feeling good comes first to me, because there's I can't remember the last day I woke up where I didn't wake up because of pain. And I'm fortunate that I don't have the ability to take pain pills, because I would probably be a drug addict if I did, which sounds terrible. But I'm either woken up by knees or my hips bothering me because of the way I was laying. And so feeling good is not having pain to me. And it's kind of a rare thing because it's always there in some sort of dull capacity. And then looking good, gosh, looking good to me is typically when I'm in my element and I am in command of the topic or the command of the situation, and I know what I'm doing and I feel confident. So that's when I feel like I look good typically, even if I'm, in my ratty jeans and don't care about whether I put makeup on or did my hair. It's having command of the topic and the situation and being confident. Yeah.
And what makes you feel the most beautiful?
I think it's when my partner, and this sounds really, really shallow, that I feel like I need to be validated by somebody, but I don't really think about feeling beautiful until I'm told, hey, your smile lights up the room, or something like that, and it's basically being reminded that I am. I don't really think about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, perfect sense. Being reminded about that.
Yeah.
So do you have any favorite quotes or quote about being a woman?
I do, but I'm really bad on memory these days, and I had to write it down because I couldn't remember it, and I need to put something on so I can actually read it. Remember, you are always braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and more beautiful than you imagine, and loved more than you know.
Oh, that's a beautiful one.
So that's one of my favorite ones.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you very much for sharing your wisdom and joining our project. And I hope you will enjoy today's photo shoot.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
If you have an interesting story to share, we'd love for you to participate. You can email us on info@alexandrawalker.com, and that's Alexandra spelled with a KS, or visit our website alexandrawalker.com.